The industrial washing machines in the basement of Naval Base Coronado hummed their familiar rhythm at 0530 hours when Commander Jack Razor Mitchell heard something that made him freeze mid-step. Through the concrete walls and machinery noise, a voice was humming a melody that shouldn't exist outside his classified unit, a tune that carried operational significance known only to 12 people in the entire United States military. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Mitchell pressed his ear against the laundry room door, his pulse quickening as he recognized not just the melody, but the precise tactical cadence that his team used during high-risk insertions. The voice was female, soft but confident, carrying the tune with a kind of familiarity that came from deep understanding rather than casual exposure. Every note was perfect, every pause exactly where it should be, every emphasis aligned with operational protocols that were never written down, never recorded, never shared outside his unit. Inside the laundry facility, 26-year-old Sarah Chen continued her morning routine, completely unaware that her quiet humming had just shattered someone's understanding of operational security. She folded Navy-issued uniforms with mechanical precision, her hands moving through practiced motions while her mind wandered to places she tried not to think about during working hours. The melody that flowed unconsciously from her lips was a remnant from another life, a muscle memory that surfaced during moments when her guard was down. Sarah had been the base laundry supervisor for 8 months, a position that placed her firmly in the category of essential but invisible support personnel. Every morning at 0500, she arrived at the basement facility where industrial machines processed thousands of pounds of military clothing, linens, and equipment covers. Her domain consisted of 4 washing units, 6 industrial dryers, 3 pressing stations, and endless rows of sorting tables where she worked alone, methodically processing the garments that kept the base functioning. To everyone who encountered her, Sarah was exactly what her personnel file indicated, a dedicated civilian contractor with an exceptional work ethic and an unusual attention to detail. Her supervisor, Martha Rodriguez, consistently rated her performance as outstanding, noting her ability to handle complex sorting requirements and her knowledge of proper care procedures for specialized military equipment. Sarah could identify fabric types by touch, knew the cleaning protocols for everything from standard utilities to chemical-resistant gear, and maintained equipment with the kind of systematic approach that prevented costly breakdowns. What her supervisor didn't know, what her background check hadn't revealed, and what Sarah had carefully hidden for nearly 2 years, was that her expertise with military equipment extended far beyond laundry care. Every uniform that passed through her hands told a story she could read like classified intelligence. The wear patterns on combat boots revealed deployment histories. Stains on tactical gear indicated operational environments. Fabric damage suggested specific types of missions that weren't discussed in official reports. The Naval Special Warfare units based at Coronado presented particular challenges that Sarah handled with suspicious competence. Their gear required specialized care protocols that most contractors learned through extensive training, but Sarah had mastered these procedures with remarkable speed. She understood which materials couldn't be mixed during washing cycles, knew the temperature requirements for different types of protective equipment, and could identify and properly treat chemical residues that other laundry personnel might not recognize. Her work area reflected an organizational system that exceeded standard requirements. Gear was sorted not just by fabric type and color, but by operational significance that shouldn't have been apparent to civilian personnel. Combat uniforms were processed separately from training gear. Equipment from different units was kept strictly segregated. Specialized items were handled with protocols that suggested understanding of their tactical applications rather than just their cleaning requirements. The melody that had captured Commander Mitchell's attention was part of a collection that Sarah carried in her memory, songs, chants, and tactical calls that surfaced during unguarded moments. She hummed while working because the familiar rhythms helped her maintain focus during repetitive tasks, never considering that these musical fragments might reveal information about her background that could compromise the carefully constructed identity she'd built. Her apartment in nearby Imperial Beach contained no evidence of military service, no photographs that might suggest connections to operational units, no equipment or literature that would contradict her civilian contractor status. She'd created a life that was deliberately ordinary, working in a support role that kept her close to the military environment she understood, while maintaining complete separation from operational activities. The irony wasn't lost on her that she spent her days caring for equipment used by people engaged in the kind of work she'd once done herself. Every item that passed through her hands represented capabilities she'd helped develop, missions she'd supported, operations she'd planned. But those connections existed only in her memory, carefully compartmentalized from her current role as someone who cleaned and pressed the uniforms of warriors, rather than wearing them herself. Commander Mitchell remained outside the laundry room, processing the implications of what he'd heard. The tune was from Operation Neptune's Shadow, a classification so deep that even knowing it existed was a federal crime for unauthorized personnel. His unit had developed that specific melody as a communications protocol during missions where electronic silence was critical. It served as an audible identification system that could convey tactical information through rhythm and emphasis patterns that appeared to be casual humming to outside observers. The possibility that a civilian contractor could know this melody suggested either a massive security breach or the presence of someone whose background was significantly different from their official records. Mitchell's training argued for immediate investigation and containment, but his operational experience suggested something more complex might be developing. The humming hadn't been performed as communication or signal. It was unconscious, natural, the kind of automatic behavior that indicated deep familiarity rather than recent acquisition. As Sarah continued her work, sorting gear from the previous night's training exercises, she remained unaware that her quiet morning routine had triggered the attention of someone whose job was to identify and investigate exactly the kind of anomalies her presence represented. The melody faded as she focused on a complex load of specialized equipment, but the damage was done. Her carefully maintained invisibility had been compromised by the one thing she couldn't completely control: the muscle memory of who she used to be. The basement laundry facility had always been her sanctuary, a place where she could work alone with equipment and protocols that felt familiar without being threatening. Now, without knowing it, that sanctuary had become the stage for a confrontation between her current identity and her hidden past, triggered by a moment of unconscious vulnerability that would force both her and Commander Mitchell to confront questions about identity, capability, and the complex relationship between who someone appears to be and who they actually are. Sarah Chen's transformation from Lieutenant Sarah Elizabeth Chen, United States Navy intelligence specialist, to civilian contractor Sarah Chen had required 2 years of meticulous planning and the kind of identity reconstruction typically reserved for witness protection programs. The woman who now sorted military laundry with mechanical precision had once briefed admirals on counterterrorism operations and developed intelligence assessments that influenced national security policy at the highest levels. Her journey to the basement of Naval Base Coronado began in the mountains of Afghanistan, where a reconnaissance mission she'd planned had gone catastrophically wrong. 3 operators had died because of intelligence failures that weren't her fault, but felt like personal betrayals. The official investigation cleared her of responsibility, her superiors maintained confidence in her abilities, and her security clearance remained intact. But Sarah couldn't reconcile the gap between her technical competence and the human cost of decisions made in sterile briefing rooms far from operational realities. The breaking point came during a promotion ceremony where she was recognized for excellence in intelligence analysis, while the families of the deceased operators sat in the audience. As her commanding officer praised her strategic thinking and analytical precision, Sarah realized that she'd become disconnected from the fundamental purpose of military service: protecting the people who put their lives at risk based on information she provided. Her expertise had become an abstraction, divorced from the human consequences of operational planning. Her resignation from active duty was processed quietly, with understanding superiors who recognized combat stress reactions even when they manifested as career decisions rather than medical symptoms. The Navy lost a promising intelligence officer, but Sarah gained something she'd been searching for: the opportunity to serve military personnel in ways that felt directly connected to their welfare, rather than filtered through bureaucratic layers. The decision to seek employment in base support services was deliberate. Sarah wanted to remain close to the military environment she understood, while occupying a role that involved caring for people rather than analyzing threats. Laundry work offered the perfect combination of technical complexity and human service. She could use her attention to detail and understanding of military protocols while ensuring that personnel had properly maintained equipment and clean uniforms. Her application for the civilian contractor position was carefully crafted to highlight relevant skills while obscuring their origins. Her technical knowledge was attributed to previous employment in industrial cleaning rather than military intelligence. Her understanding of chemical protocols was explained through civilian training programs rather than NBC warfare specialization. Her organizational abilities were presented as personal strengths rather than products of classified briefing preparation. The background investigation that preceded her employment was thorough but focused on financial stability and criminal history rather than detailed career analysis. Sarah's military service appeared in her records as standard administrative duty, with no indication of intelligence specialization or classified access. Her personnel file showed an exemplary but unremarkable naval career that wouldn't raise questions about her transition to civilian support work. What the investigation couldn't detect was the depth of knowledge that Sarah carried from her intelligence background. Every piece of military equipment that passed through her hands triggered recognition of its tactical applications, deployment patterns, and operational significance. She understood supply chain implications that weren't apparent to other contractor personnel. She could identify unit affiliations based on equipment configurations and recognize mission profiles from gear maintenance patterns. Her work routine had evolved into a sophisticated intelligence collection system that operated entirely within her own mind. Sarah processed information from equipment conditions, deployment schedules visible through laundry volumes, and personnel rotation patterns that created opportunities for informal assessment of operational tempo. She never recorded these observations or shared them with anyone, but the analytical habits developed during her intelligence career operated automatically whenever she encountered military activities. The laundry facility itself had become her private intelligence center, where she could observe military operations from a support perspective that provided unique insights. Equipment damage patterns revealed training intensities and operational focus areas. Chemical residues indicated environmental exposures that suggested specific deployment locations. Uniform modifications showed individual operator preferences that reflected operational specializations. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Her interaction with personnel retrieving cleaned gear provided additional information that she processed unconsciously. Conversation fragments revealed deployment schedules, training priorities, and operational concerns. Body language and stress indicators suggested mission preparation phases or post-deployment adjustment periods. Equipment requests and special handling requirements indicated operational planning activities that weren't visible through normal channels. The most valuable intelligence came from equipment belonging to special operations units whose gear required specialized handling protocols. Sarah's previous clearance levels had included exposure to special operations planning, giving her context for interpreting maintenance requirements and equipment configurations that would be meaningless to other contractor personnel. She could recognize preparation phases for specific mission types and identify operational capabilities based on equipment modifications. Her linguistic abilities, developed during intelligence training, allowed her to understand conversations in multiple languages that personnel assumed civilian contractors couldn't comprehend. Arabic, Farsi, and Mandarin discussions provided insights into cultural training programs and regional operational focus areas. Technical terminology in various languages revealed international cooperation activities and joint operational planning initiatives. The most dangerous aspect of her hidden knowledge was her familiarity with communication protocols that extended beyond standard military procedures. Her intelligence background had included exposure to special operations communication systems, recognition codes, and tactical signals that were compartmentalized far above normal clearance levels. The melody that had attracted Commander Mitchell's attention was just one example of operational knowledge that could compromise her carefully constructed civilian identity. Her personal time was spent maintaining skills that had no apparent connection to laundry work, but provided ongoing connection to her intelligence background. She monitored international news with analytical intensity that far exceeded civilian interest. Foreign language proficiency was maintained through online resources and cultural programs that she explained as personal interests. Physical fitness was pursued with systematic intensity that seemed excessive for support personnel but felt necessary for psychological well-being. The apartment she maintained in Imperial Beach was deliberately ordinary, furnished with items that supported her civilian contractor identity while concealing any evidence of her military background. No photographs from her naval service, no awards or commendations, no technical literature that might suggest specialized knowledge. Her entertainment choices, reading materials, and social activities were carefully curated to support the image of someone whose military connection was limited to her current employment. Social relationships were managed with equal care. Sarah maintained friendly but superficial connections with other base personnel, participating in conversations about civilian topics while avoiding subjects that might reveal her analytical capabilities or specialized knowledge. Her colleagues saw her as competent but unremarkable, someone who performed her duties well without displaying unusual interests or capabilities. The psychological toll of maintaining this constructed identity was significant. Sarah often felt like she was living in exile from her true capabilities, using a fraction of her intellectual capacity while suppressing instincts and knowledge that had defined her professional identity for years. The work provided satisfaction through direct service to military personnel, but it couldn't replace the intellectual engagement and strategic responsibility that had characterized her intelligence career. Her dreams often returned her to briefing rooms and operation centers, where her analytical capabilities were essential rather than hidden. She woke up with solutions to strategic problems that no longer belonged to her, insights into international situations that she couldn't share with anyone, and tactical assessments that had no outlet except her own consciousness. The melody that had unconsciously emerged while she worked was symptomatic of a larger struggle between suppressing her background and maintaining connection to the military environment she understood. What Sarah didn't realize was that her careful construction of civilian normalcy contained vulnerabilities that trained observers could detect. Her technical competence exceeded normal parameters for civilian contractors. Her organizational systems reflected military efficiency that suggested advanced training. Her physical conditioning and situational awareness indicated backgrounds that contradicted her official employment history. Most dangerously, her unconscious behaviors carried traces of classified knowledge that could be recognized by people with appropriate experience. Commander Mitchell represented exactly the kind of trained observer who could identify anomalies in personnel behavior and connect them to potential security implications. His recognition of the classified melody was just the beginning of an investigation that would force Sarah to confront the fundamental question of whether it was possible to truly separate from a military identity that had shaped every aspect of her analytical and operational thinking. The hierarchical structure of Naval Base Coronado operated on clearly defined boundaries that separated operational personnel from support staff with rigid precision. Sarah's position as a civilian contractor placed her firmly on the support side of this divide, where her interactions with military personnel were limited to professional exchanges about laundry services and equipment maintenance. The system was designed to maintain operational security while ensuring efficient base operations, but it also created institutional blindness to capabilities that existed outside expected categories. Martha Rodriguez, the base laundry operations supervisor, embodied the institutional mindset that kept support personnel in narrowly defined roles. A former Navy logistics specialist with 23 years of service, Rodriguez managed contractor personnel with the assumption that civilian employees required constant oversight and possessed limited understanding of military requirements. Her management style reflected decades of experience with contractors who needed extensive training to handle basic military procedures. Rodriguez's first indication that Sarah might be different came during her initial training period, when Sarah demonstrated immediate familiarity with equipment care protocols that typically required months to master. Instead of recognizing this as evidence of relevant background experience, Rodriguez interpreted it as exceptional natural ability, combined with unusual dedication to learning. The possibility that Sarah possessed military experience never occurred to her, since personnel files showed no indication of prior service. The base commissary incident, 3 months into Sarah's employment, provided the first clear example of institutional dismissal, despite demonstrated competence. During a lunch break, Sarah overheard 2 junior officers discussing logistical challenges for an upcoming training exercise that involved specialized equipment cleaning requirements. Their conversation revealed fundamental misunderstandings about chemical compatibility issues that could damage expensive gear or compromise operational effectiveness. Sarah's intelligence background had included extensive training in chemical warfare defense, giving her expert knowledge of decontamination procedures and material compatibility factors. She understood immediately that the officers were planning procedures that would destroy equipment worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, while potentially creating safety hazards for personnel. Her instinct was to provide guidance that could prevent both financial loss and safety risks. Approaching the officers with respectful professionalism, Sarah introduced herself as laundry operations personnel and offered observations about their discussed procedures. She explained chemical compatibility issues in technical detail, suggested alternative approaches that would achieve their objectives without equipment damage, and provided specific product recommendations that would be more effective for their requirements. The officer's response was polite but dismissive. They thanked her for her interest while making it clear that operational planning was outside her area of responsibility. One officer explained that they had received training on these procedures and were confident in their approach. The other suggested that laundry personnel should focus on cleaning clothes rather than offering advice about tactical operations. Rodriguez, who witnessed the interaction, later counseled Sarah about appropriate boundaries between support staff and operational personnel. She explained that civilian contractors were expected to perform their assigned duties without attempting to advise military personnel on matters outside their expertise. While Rodriguez acknowledged that Sarah's intentions were positive, she emphasized that such interactions could be perceived as inappropriate or presumptuous. The equipment damage that occurred 2 weeks later during the training exercise validated Sarah's warnings but generated no recognition of her expertise. When thousands of dollars worth of specialized gear was destroyed exactly as she had predicted, the incident was attributed to inadequate training and poor procedure implementation. No one connected the damage to the advice that had been dismissed from the laundry contractor who had tried to prevent it. Base security protocols created additional barriers that prevented Sarah from demonstrating capabilities that extended beyond her assigned role. Her civilian contractor status limited her access to areas where operational planning occurred, restricted her participation in training activities, and excluded her from meetings where her analytical skills might have provided valuable contributions. The security system was designed to protect classified information, but it also prevented recognition of relevant expertise that existed among support personnel. Lieutenant Colonel David Harrison, the base operations officer, exemplified the institutional mindset that categorized personnel based on job titles rather than capabilities. Harrison interacted with Sarah only during occasional inspections of support facilities, where his focus was on operational efficiency rather than individual competence. His evaluation of laundry operations was limited to metrics like processing volume, turnaround times, and cost-effectiveness. During one inspection, Harrison observed Sarah organizing equipment with systematic precision that exceeded standard requirements. Her sorting methods reflected understanding of operational priorities that weren't apparent to other contractor personnel. Gear was arranged according to mission criticality, unit assignments, and deployment schedules that suggested knowledge of tactical planning principles. Harrison's response was to compliment Rodriguez on maintaining high standards among contractor personnel without recognizing that Sarah's organizational methods indicated specialized knowledge. His institutional framework couldn't accommodate the possibility that a laundry contractor might possess operational expertise, so he interpreted systematic efficiency as evidence of good supervision rather than individual capability. The base communication system created another layer of separation that limited Sarah's ability to contribute to operational effectiveness. Contractor personnel were excluded from briefings where her intelligence background might have provided valuable insights. Her language skills, which could have enhanced international cooperation activities, remained unknown to personnel who could have utilized them. Her analytical capabilities, which could have improved threat assessments and operational planning, were invisible to decision-makers who might have benefited from them. Chief Petty Officer Angela Torres, who managed equipment accountability for special operations units, represented the practical consequences of institutional barriers. Torres was responsible for ensuring that specialized gear received appropriate care and maintenance, but her interaction with laundry personnel was limited to processing work orders and inspection reports. She had no mechanism for accessing expertise that might exist among support staff. Torres encountered recurring problems with equipment damage that resulted from inappropriate cleaning procedures or inadequate handling protocols. Each incident required investigation, replacement costs, and operational delays that affected mission readiness. The problems were typically attributed to contractor personnel who lacked sufficient training or attention to detail, leading to increased oversight and more restrictive procedures. Sarah observed these recurring issues with frustration, knowing that her background provided solutions that could prevent both equipment damage and operational delays. Her intelligence training had included extensive exposure to special operations equipment, giving her understanding of maintenance requirements that exceeded anything available through contractor training programs. She could identify problems before they occurred and recommend procedures that would improve both equipment longevity and operational effectiveness. Attempts to communicate this expertise were consistently dismissed through institutional channels that couldn't accommodate input from support personnel on operational matters. When Sarah suggested modifications to cleaning procedures that could prevent equipment damage, her recommendations were filed as contractor feedback without serious consideration. When she identified potential problems with current protocols, her concerns were thanked and ignored. The base training system reinforced institutional barriers by providing contractor personnel with narrowly focused instruction that emphasized their limitations rather than exploring their capabilities. Sarah's mandatory training sessions covered basic safety procedures, security awareness, and job-specific skills while excluding any content that might reveal broader competencies. The system was designed to ensure adequate performance in assigned roles rather than identify potential contributions outside those roles. Professional development opportunities were similarly constrained by institutional assumptions about contractor capabilities and career objectives. Sarah's requests to attend training sessions that might enhance her contributions were denied based on relevance criteria that couldn't account for her background knowledge. Advanced equipment maintenance courses were reserved for military personnel, despite her superior qualifications for such training. Social interactions on base reflected the same institutional barriers that limited professional recognition. Military personnel maintained friendly but distant relationships with contractor staff based on assumptions about shared interests and common experiences. Conversations were limited to topics that were considered appropriate for civilian personnel, excluding discussions about operational matters that Sarah could have contributed to meaningfully. The cumulative effect of institutional barriers was to create systematic underutilization of capabilities that could have enhanced operational effectiveness while improving cost efficiency. Sarah's expertise remained invisible to decision-makers who could have benefited from it, while problems that she could solve continued to generate costs and delays. The institutional framework protected security and maintained order, but it also prevented optimization of available resources. Base personnel never questioned whether support staff might possess relevant expertise because the institutional framework didn't provide mechanisms for discovering such capabilities. The assumption was that qualified personnel were already in appropriate positions, and that support staff were limited to their assigned roles by competence rather than by institutional design. Sarah's growing frustration with institutional limitations was compounded by her awareness of problems that she could solve and opportunities that she could enhance. Every piece of damaged equipment represented preventable waste. Every delayed operation reflected planning inadequacies that she could have addressed. Every training problem indicated knowledge gaps that her background could have filled. The institutional system that kept her separated from operational activities also prevented her from making contributions that could have justified broader recognition of her capabilities. Without opportunities to demonstrate expertise, she remained categorized according to her job title, rather than her qualifications. Without recognition of her qualifications, she received no opportunities to demonstrate expertise that extended beyond laundry operations. This systematic cycle of limitation and dismissal created the conditions for eventual confrontation between institutional assumptions and individual capabilities. Sarah's background provided her with knowledge that institutional barriers prevented her from utilizing, while operational problems that she could solve continued to affect base effectiveness. The tension between her hidden expertise and her constrained role was building toward inevitable revelation that would force institutional recognition of capabilities that formal systems had failed to identify. The shift in attention began subtly, with seemingly innocent observations that gradually coalesced into a pattern of suspicion that threatened to unravel Sarah's carefully constructed civilian identity. Commander Mitchell's initial recognition of the classified Melody had triggered a quiet investigation that operated beneath the surface of normal base activities, gathering evidence through careful observation rather than direct confrontation. Mitchell's approach to the situation reflected his special operations background, where intelligence gathering required patience and systematic analysis rather than immediate action. He began monitoring Sarah's activities through available surveillance systems, reviewing her personnel file for inconsistencies, and observing her interactions with base personnel for indicators that might explain her knowledge of classified operational protocols. The Base Security Office maintained comprehensive surveillance coverage that included common areas, work facilities, and entry points where contractor personnel could be observed during normal activities. Mitchell's security clearance provided him access to these systems for legitimate operational purposes, allowing him to study Sarah's behavior patterns without her awareness. What he discovered was a level of situational awareness and systematic observation that seemed inconsistent with civilian contractor background. Security footage revealed that Sarah moved through base facilities with the kind of tactical consciousness that indicated advanced training in threat assessment and environmental awareness. Her positioning in crowded areas optimized escape routes and observation angles. Her interaction with security checkpoints demonstrated familiarity with procedures that exceeded normal contractor experience. Her equipment handling reflected understanding of operational priorities that weren't apparent to other support personnel. The most significant discovery came from audio surveillance in the laundry facility, where Sarah's unconscious vocalizations included fragments of additional classified material. Beyond the original melody that had attracted Mitchell's attention, she occasionally hummed tactical calls, communication codes, and operational signals that were compartmentalized far above civilian contractor clearance levels. These weren't isolated incidents, but ongoing patterns that suggested deep familiarity with special operations protocols. Master Chief Petty Officer Robert "Tank" Morrison, Mitchell's senior enlisted advisor, was brought into the investigation after security analysis revealed additional anomalies in Sarah's behavior. Morrison's 22 years in naval special warfare had included extensive experience with personnel security investigations, making him uniquely qualified to assess potential threats or identify personnel with concealed backgrounds. Morrison's initial assessment of available evidence confirmed Mitchell's concerns while adding new dimensions to the developing investigation. Sarah's physical conditioning exceeded requirements for civilian contractor personnel by significant margins. Her language skills, demonstrated through overheard conversations, included technical military terminology in multiple foreign languages. Her organizational systems reflected intelligence analysis training that was inconsistent with laundry operations background. The investigation expanded to include covert observation of Sarah's off-duty activities, where additional inconsistencies emerged. Her apartment was located in an area popular with retired military personnel, but her social interactions were limited to superficial relationships that avoided discussions about personal background or career history. Her recreational activities included physical training that maintained operational fitness standards and cultural events that suggested ongoing interest in international affairs. Sarah's digital footprint provided another layer of evidence that contradicted her official background. Her internet activity included monitoring of international news sources, foreign language media, and technical publications that seemed excessive for civilian contractor interests. Her online purchases included books on strategic analysis, international relations, and military history that suggested ongoing professional development in areas unrelated to laundry operations. The most damaging evidence came from restaurant surveillance, where Sarah was observed during lunch meetings with other contractor personnel. Audio recording revealed that her casual comments about equipment care included technical details that should have been unknown to civilian personnel. Her observations about operational tempo patterns demonstrated analytical capabilities that exceeded normal contractor awareness of base activities. Lieutenant Commander Patricia Icewalker, the base intelligence officer, was consulted when the investigation reached the point where specialized assessment was required. Walker's background in counterintelligence and personnel security made her responsible for evaluating potential threats posed by personnel with concealed backgrounds or unexplained access to classified information. Walker's analysis of accumulated evidence confirmed that Sarah possessed knowledge and capabilities that were inconsistent with her official background, but the nature of this inconsistency suggested professional military training rather than hostile intelligence activity. The pattern of observed behaviors indicated someone with legitimate access to classified information who was attempting to conceal their background, rather than someone who had acquired such access through unauthorized means. The investigation reached a critical juncture when audio surveillance captured Sarah providing technical advice to military personnel during equipment processing activities. Her guidance included specific recommendations about chemical compatibility, temperature requirements, and handling procedures that reflected expert knowledge of operational equipment characteristics. When questioned about the source of her expertise, Sarah attributed it to previous employment in industrial cleaning rather than military training. Walker's assessment identified multiple deception indicators in Sarah's explanations about her background and capabilities. Her body language during questioning suggested stress responses associated with concealment rather than honest uncertainty. Her linguistic patterns included technical terminology that was more consistent with military briefing experience than civilian employment history. Her defensive responses to casual inquiries about her past indicated systematic preparation for such questions. The Base Personnel Office was tasked with conducting enhanced background verification that extended beyond standard contractor screening procedures. This investigation revealed gaps in Sarah's employment history that coincided with military service periods, educational achievements that exceeded stated qualifications, and reference contacts who provided responses that seemed carefully coordinated rather than spontaneous. Chief Warrant Officer Marcus Viper Thompson, the base security officer, was assigned to coordinate expanded surveillance that included monitoring Sarah's communications and tracking her movements during off-duty hours. Thompson's investigation revealed contact patterns that suggested ongoing relationships with active-duty military personnel, despite her claims of limited military connections. The expanded surveillance operation created operational security concerns about maintaining investigation secrecy while gathering necessary evidence. Sarah's demonstrated awareness of surveillance techniques meant that obvious investigation activities might prompt her to alter her behavior or disappear entirely. The investigation required careful balance between evidence gathering and operational security that reflected the complexity of the situation. Sarah began noticing changes in how base personnel interacted with her, subtle shifts in attitude and behavior that suggested her status had changed in ways she couldn't identify. Conversations that had previously included casual technical discussions now focused on weather and general topics. Equipment requests that had been routine were now subjected to additional verification procedures. Her movements around base facilities were monitored more closely by security personnel. The psychological pressure of unknown scrutiny began affecting Sarah's performance and behavior in ways that created additional evidence for investigators. Her stress responses included increased vigilance that demonstrated counter-surveillance awareness, modifications to her routine that suggested operational security consciousness, and communication patterns that avoided topics where she might inadvertently reveal additional classified knowledge. Rodriguez noticed behavioral changes that seemed inconsistent with normal work stress or personal problems. Sarah's interaction with military personnel became more cautious and formal. Her technical comments about equipment care were limited to basic procedures, rather than the detailed guidance she had previously provided. Her organizational systems became even more systematically precise, as if she was attempting to demonstrate competence through visible efficiency. The investigation timeline became critical when Walker's analysis indicated that Sarah's knowledge of current operational protocols suggested recent rather than historical access to classified information. This possibility raised concerns about ongoing security breaches that might require immediate intervention rather than continued observation. The investigation shifted from intelligence gathering to active assessment of current security threats. Mitchell faced the decision of whether to continue covert investigation or initiate direct confrontation that might resolve security concerns, but could also compromise the investigation if Sarah possessed legitimate explanations for her knowledge and capabilities. The evidence strongly suggested concealed military background, but institutional protocols required definitive proof before taking action that might affect someone's employment and security status. The situation reached a tipping point when audio surveillance captured Sarah humming an operational tune that had been developed for a mission conducted only 3 weeks earlier. This evidence confirmed that her access to classified information was current rather than historical, creating an immediate security concern that required resolution through direct investigation rather than continued observation. The investigation had evolved from curiosity about an unusual melody to a comprehensive security assessment that identified multiple indicators of concealed military background combined with current access to highly classified operational information. The accumulated evidence demanded answers that could only be obtained through direct confrontation, setting the stage for revelation that would either confirm Sarah's identity as a security threat or expose institutional failures in personnel management and background verification procedures. The crisis erupted at 1,347 hours on a Tuesday afternoon when the base's emergency alert system activated with the piercing wail that indicated an immediate security threat. Sarah was processing a load of specialized diving equipment when the alarm cut through the familiar hum of industrial washing machines, triggering muscle memory responses that she hadn't experienced since her active duty days. Her body automatically shifted into tactical assessment mode, while her conscious mind struggled to maintain her civilian contractor persona. The base-wide announcement crackled through speakers with barely controlled urgency. Security alert level Charlie. All non-essential personnel report to designated shelter areas immediately. This is not a drill. Repeat, security alert level Charlie. The words carried implications that civilian contractors weren't expected to understand, but Sarah's intelligence background allowed her to recognize the severity of the situation and the operational responses that would be initiated. Commander Mitchell was in the base operations center when reports began flooding in about a suspected terrorist infiltration team that had breached perimeter security during a shift change. Initial intelligence indicated multiple hostiles with advanced training and equipment who had successfully penetrated base defenses using sophisticated tactics that suggested extensive planning and reconnaissance. The threat assessment placed them somewhere within the base's industrial complex, potentially targeting critical infrastructure or high-value personnel. The timing of the attack coincided with a scheduled training exercise that had deployed most special operations personnel to off-base locations, leaving Coronado with reduced tactical response capabilities. The available security forces were primarily base defense personnel with limited experience in counter-terrorism operations within facility confines. The tactical situation required specialized expertise that wasn't immediately available through normal channels. Sarah remained in the laundry facility despite evacuation orders, her intelligence training automatically analyzing the situation through information fragments available from radio communications and base-wide announcements. Her position in the industrial complex provided her with detailed knowledge of facility layouts, concealment opportunities, and potential infiltration routes that would be valuable for tactical planning. More importantly, her current location placed her in proximity to areas where hostile forces might establish positions or conduct surveillance. Lieutenant Colonel Harrison coordinated the immediate response from the base command center, where tactical displays showed security camera feeds and personnel tracking information that painted an incomplete picture of the developing threat. The infiltration team had demonstrated capability to avoid or neutralize surveillance systems, creating gaps in situational awareness that hampered response planning. Available intelligence suggested they possessed equipment and training consistent with state-sponsored terrorism rather than improvised attack capabilities. The industrial complex where Sarah worked contained critical infrastructure including power distribution systems, communication equipment, and water treatment facilities that represented high-value targets for terrorist operations. The maze of pipes, machinery, and storage areas also provided numerous concealment opportunities for hostile forces who understood facility layouts. Security teams would need detailed knowledge of these areas to conduct effective search operations without exposing themselves to ambush. Master Chief Morrison coordinated available tactical personnel while requesting emergency reinforcement from nearby units that could provide specialized counter-terrorism capabilities. The response timeline indicated that qualified personnel would require a minimum 45 minutes to reach Coronado and organize effective operations. During this critical window, base security would depend on available resources that included maintenance staff, administrative personnel, and civilian contractors with unknown capabilities. Sarah monitored radio communications through equipment that civilian contractors weren't supposed to access, but her technical knowledge allowed her to bypass security protocols without detection. The information she gathered painted a tactical picture that was more dire than public announcements indicated. The infiltration team consisted of at least 6 operatives with advanced equipment who had demonstrated capability to neutralize base security measures. Their objectives remained unclear, but their positioning suggested preparations for multiple simultaneous attacks. The base evacuation procedures were designed to move non-essential personnel to secure areas while maintaining operational capabilities through skeleton crews of critical personnel. Sarah's official status as civilian contractor meant she should have reported to designated shelter areas, but her intelligence background allowed her to recognize that the current threat exceeded capabilities of standard base defense personnel. The tactical situation required expertise that might not be available through normal channels. Commander Mitchell faced impossible decisions about resource allocation and tactical priorities, with insufficient information and inadequate personnel. The infiltration team's demonstrated sophistication suggested they possessed intelligence about base operations that allowed them to time their attack for maximum effectiveness. Their knowledge of security procedures and facility layouts indicated extensive preparation that might include insider information or detailed reconnaissance. The communication intercepts that Sarah could access through her technical knowledge revealed additional details about the threat that weren't included in official announcements. The hostile forces were coordinating through encrypted communication systems that suggested military-grade equipment and training. Their tactical communications included references to specific base locations and personnel that indicated detailed intelligence about Coronado's operations and capabilities. Security camera footage from the industrial complex showed movement patterns that confirmed Sarah's analysis about hostile positioning and tactical intentions. The infiltration team was conducting systematic reconnaissance of critical infrastructure while avoiding areas covered by remaining surveillance systems. Their movement discipline and tactical coordination demonstrated professional military training that exceeded typical terrorist capabilities. The base medical facility reported receiving casualties from initial contact between security forces and the infiltration team, confirming that hostile forces were equipped with military-grade weapons and willing to engage in sustained combat operations. The tactical situation was escalating beyond containment toward active warfare within base boundaries, requiring response capabilities that weren't immediately available. Sarah's position in the laundry facility provided her with unique advantages for observing hostile movements and potential tactical contributions to base defense operations. Her detailed knowledge of facility layouts, combined with her intelligence analysis capabilities, allowed her to predict likely attack routes and target priorities. More critically, her understanding of counterterrorism operations provided her with insights about response strategies that could be effective against the current threat. The crisis reached a critical juncture when security communications revealed that the infiltration team had established positions near critical infrastructure that could affect base operations and personnel safety. The hostile forces demonstrated knowledge of facility vulnerabilities that suggested extensive preparation and possibly insider intelligence. Their positioning indicated preparation for coordinated attacks that could cause massive casualties and operational disruption. Commander Mitchell's tactical assessment concluded that available base security forces were insufficient to neutralize the threat without significant casualties and potential mission failure. The sophisticated nature of the attack, combined with the timing that coincided with reduced special operations availability, suggested enemy intelligence about base capabilities and schedules. The situation required expertise and tactical capabilities that exceeded normal base defense resources. The base command center received intelligence updates indicating that the infiltration team might be targeting specific high-value individuals or attempting to extract classified information rather than conducting indiscriminate attacks. This assessment suggested that the hostile forces possessed detailed knowledge about base personnel and operations that could only have been obtained through extensive intelligence gathering or insider access. Sarah's monitoring of tactical communications revealed gaps in base security coverage that created opportunities for hostile forces to achieve their objectives while avoiding effective response. Her intelligence background allowed her to identify coordination failures and resource allocation problems that were hampering defensive operations. More importantly, she recognized tactical solutions that could enhance base security effectiveness if implemented by personnel with appropriate training. The moment of decision arrived when security reports confirmed that the infiltration team had achieved positions that threatened critical base functions and personnel safety. Available response capabilities were insufficient to neutralize the threat through conventional security operations, and reinforcement personnel remained minutes away from effective deployment. The tactical situation required immediate action by personnel with capabilities that exceeded standard-based security training. Sarah faced the choice that would define her future: maintain her civilian contractor identity while watching potential catastrophe unfold, or reveal her true capabilities and background to contribute solutions that might prevent casualties and operational failure. The intelligence she possessed about hostile positioning and tactics could be crucial for defensive operations, but sharing this information would expose her concealed military background and terminate her carefully constructed civilian identity. The crisis had created circumstances where institutional barriers between operational and support personnel became potentially fatal limitations. Sarah's hidden expertise represented capabilities that could influence the tactical situation, but utilizing these capabilities would require abandoning the identity constraints that had protected her from institutional pressures, while allowing her to serve military personnel in her chosen support role. The base-wide communication system announced that the situation had escalated to the highest threat level, requiring immediate implementation of emergency protocols that would determine whether Coronado could defend itself against sophisticated attack until reinforcement arrived. The announcement carried implications that everyone understood. The next few minutes would determine whether the base survived as a functional military installation or became a terrorist victory that demonstrated vulnerability of critical defense facilities. Sarah's transformation from civilian contractor to tactical intelligence asset began with a single radio transmission that she intercepted at 1,354 hours. The message, encrypted in a protocol she recognized from her classified background, revealed that the terrorist infiltration team was preparing to execute a coordinated assault on the base's communications center and power distribution facility. The attack timeline indicated they would strike in 12 minutes, during a shift change that would minimize security coverage at both targets. Without hesitation, Sarah abandoned her laundry station and moved through the industrial complex using routes that avoided main corridors and security checkpoints. Her intelligence training had included advanced movement techniques for operating in hostile environments, and she applied these skills to navigate base facilities without detection by either security forces or potential terrorist surveillance. Her destination was the Base Operations Center, where she intended to provide tactical intelligence that could prevent catastrophic infrastructure damage. The Operations Center buzzed with controlled chaos as personnel struggled to coordinate response efforts with incomplete information and insufficient resources. Commander Mitchell stood at the central tactical display, studying fragmentary reports and security camera feeds that provided an inadequate picture of the developing threat. His expression reflected the frustration of a commander who understood that conventional responses were insufficient for the current tactical situation. Sarah entered the operations center without authorization, her civilian contractor status providing no legitimate reason for presence in a restricted facility during emergency operations. Security personnel moved to escort her out, but she addressed Mitchell directly with information that stopped all movement in the room. "Commander, I have actionable intelligence about hostile positioning and attack timeline that requires immediate tactical response." The words carried authority and precision that contradicted everything Mitchell knew about Sarah's background and capabilities. Her linguistic patterns reflected military briefing experience, her posture demonstrated confidence under pressure, and her knowledge of appropriate protocols suggested training that extended far beyond civilian contractor requirements. Most significantly, her possession of actionable intelligence implied access to information sources that shouldn't have been available to support personnel. "Ma'am, you need to report to designated shelter areas immediately," Master Chief Morrison responded, moving to physically escort Sarah from the operations center. "This facility is restricted to essential personnel during emergency operations." His tone carried professional courtesy combined with firm authority that reflected standard protocols for managing civilian personnel during security incidents. Sarah's response shattered every assumption about her identity and capabilities. "Master Chief, the hostile forces are equipped with Chinese-manufactured electronic warfare systems, coordinating through frequency-hopping radios on non-standard intervals, and preparing to execute simultaneous attacks on targets Charlie 7 and Echo 3 in approximately 11 minutes. Your current security deployment cannot prevent mission success unless tactical modifications are implemented immediately." The silence that followed her statement stretched for seconds that felt like hours. Every person in the operations center processed information that shouldn't have existed in the mind of a civilian laundry contractor. Her knowledge of classified target designations, technical equipment specifications, and tactical analysis capabilities indicated professional military intelligence background that contradicted her official employment records. Lieutenant Commander Walker stepped forward, her counterintelligence training automatically assessing Sarah for potential security threats. "Ma'am, how do you possess this information, and what is your actual background and security clearance status?" The questions reflected protocols for managing personnel, who demonstrated unauthorized access to classified information during operational situations. Sarah faced the moment she had avoided for 2 years, the point where maintaining her constructed identity became impossible in the face of immediate tactical requirements. "Lieutenant Commander, I am former Lieutenant Sarah Elizabeth Chen, naval intelligence specialist, with top-secret SCI clearance and specialized training in counterterrorism operations. I have been monitoring hostile communications through technical access that my background provides, and the tactical situation requires immediate intervention based on intelligence I have gathered. The revelation transformed the operational dynamics instantly. Mitchell's frustration with insufficient information was replaced by recognition that qualified intelligence expertise was available for tactical planning. Walker's security concerns shifted from threat assessment to capability verification. Morrison's protective authority evolved into professional respect for demonstrated competence under pressure. Commander Mitchell made the decision that would define the tactical outcome. Chen, brief me on hostile capabilities, positioning, and tactical recommendations. Walker, verify her background and clearance status immediately. Morrison, modify security deployment based on intelligence she provides. The orders reflected command recognition that mission success required utilizing available expertise regardless of institutional protocols. Sarah's intelligence briefing demonstrated the analytical capabilities that had characterized her active duty service. Commander, hostile forces consist of 6 operatives with advanced training, positioned in 3 teams of 2. Team Alpha is establishing overwatch positions near the communication center. Team Bravo is conducting final reconnaissance of the power facility, and Team Charlie is providing security and extraction support. Their coordination patterns indicate state-sponsored training with emphasis on infrastructure disruption rather than casualty maximization. The tactical display was updated with information that Sarah provided, transforming fragmentary intelligence into comprehensive situational awareness that enabled effective response planning. Her analysis included equipment capabilities, communication protocols, and timing factors that allowed base security forces to develop counter-operations that matched hostile sophistication with tactical precision. Walker's background verification confirmed Sarah's claimed identity and clearance status through classified databases that validated her intelligence credentials and operational experience. Commander, subject is confirmed as former Lieutenant Chen with appropriate clearance levels and specialized training in counterterrorism analysis. Her background supports the technical capabilities she has demonstrated. The tactical response plan that emerged from Sarah's intelligence reflected professional operational planning that addressed hostile capabilities while maximizing available base resources. Security teams were repositioned to establish overlapping fields of fire that would prevent hostile movement between targets. Communication protocols were modified to deny hostile forces the tactical coordination they required for synchronized attacks. Electronic warfare countermeasures were implemented to disrupt hostile command and control systems. Sarah's role evolved from information provider to tactical coordinator, as her expertise proved essential for implementation of complex response operations. Her knowledge of hostile equipment allowed her to recommend countermeasures that would degrade their operational effectiveness. Her understanding of coordination requirements enabled her to identify vulnerabilities in their tactical approach that could be exploited by base security forces. The first contact occurred exactly as Sarah had predicted, with hostile forces attempting to establish positions near target facilities at the moment when her intelligence indicated they would begin final assault preparations. Base security forces were positioned to intercept these movements, creating tactical engagements that prevented hostile forces from achieving their operational objectives while maintaining base personnel safety. Master Chief Morrison coordinated the tactical response from the operations center, while Sarah provided real-time intelligence updates based on her continued monitoring of hostile communications. Her linguistic capabilities allowed her to translate intercepted messages that revealed hostile tactical modifications and frustration with unexpected security responses that had disrupted their operational timeline. The electronic warfare capabilities that Sarah had identified were successfully countered through technical measures that she recommended based on her intelligence background. Hostile communication systems were jammed at critical frequencies, forcing them to rely on less secure backup systems that base personnel could monitor and exploit for tactical advantage. The technological superiority that had enabled their initial success was systematically degraded through countermeasures that Sarah's expertise made possible. Team Alpha's attempt to establish overwatch positions near the communications center was thwarted by security forces who had been positioned based on Sarah's analysis of likely hostile approaches. The engagement resulted in capture of 2 operatives and recovery of equipment that provided additional intelligence about the overall attack plan and potential additional threats that hadn't been identified through initial assessments. Team Bravo's reconnaissance of power facility targets was interrupted by base security forces who used Sarah's intelligence about hostile timing and positioning to establish tactical ambushes that prevented completion of their mission objectives. The tactical engagement demonstrated that sophisticated attack planning could be defeated through superior intelligence and coordinated response operations that utilized available resources effectively. The most significant tactical success occurred when Sarah's analysis of hostile extraction procedures allowed base security forces to intercept Team Charlie support operations, preventing hostile forces from withdrawing after completing their attacks. The capture of the extraction team eliminated hostile escape routes, while providing intelligence about external support networks that had enabled the infiltration operation. Commander Mitchell's assessment of the tactical outcome reflected professional appreciation for intelligence capabilities that had transformed potential disaster into operational success. Chen, your analysis and tactical recommendations prevented infrastructure damage that could have affected base operations for weeks, while minimizing casualties among both base personnel and hostile forces. Your expertise proved essential for mission success. The base-wide announcement at 1,423 hours declared the security threat neutralized, with all hostile personnel either captured or confirmed eliminated. The successful defense of critical infrastructure had been achieved through tactical operations that utilized Sarah's intelligence expertise to coordinate effective responses that exceeded normal base security capabilities. Lieutenant Commander Walker's security assessment concluded that Sarah's intervention had been essential for preventing catastrophic damage to base operations while maintaining operational security protocols that protected classified information and personnel safety. Her unauthorized access to restricted facilities had been justified by tactical requirements that superseded normal administrative procedures. Master Chief Morrison's tactical debriefing emphasized the force multiplication effect that qualified intelligence analysis provided for security operations. Sarah's capability to monitor hostile communications, analyze their tactical approach, and recommend effective countermeasures had transformed available base resources into tactical capabilities that exceeded hostile planning assumptions. The equipment and intelligence recovered from captured hostile personnel confirmed the accuracy of Sarah's initial assessment about their capabilities, training, and objectives. The validation of her analysis through operational results demonstrated the quality of intelligence work that had characterized her active duty service and justified the tactical decisions that had been based on her recommendations. As base operations returned to normal security posture, Sarah faced the reality that her civilian contractor identity had been permanently compromised through her demonstration of classified capabilities during emergency operations. Her choice to provide tactical intelligence had prevented potential catastrophe while exposing her to institutional consequences that would define her future relationship with military service, and her ability to continue serving in a support role that had provided personal satisfaction and professional fulfillment. The aftermath of the terrorist incident unfolded in waves of administrative complexity that reflected the institutional challenges of integrating someone whose demonstrated capabilities had shattered every assumption about personnel classification and role assignment. Sarah sat in the base commander's conference room at 0800 hours the following morning, surrounded by officers whose ranks and responsibilities represented the full spectrum of military leadership, each grappling with implications that extended far beyond standard personnel management protocols. Captain Elena Rodriguez, the base commanding officer, had spent the previous evening reviewing classified reports that painted a picture of tactical success achieved through unconventional resource utilization. Her 26 years of naval service had included extensive experience with personnel management, but nothing had prepared her for evaluating a situation where a civilian contractor had provided intelligence analysis that prevented catastrophic infrastructure damage and potential loss of life. The formal inquiry that began at 0830 hours was unlike any administrative proceeding in base history. Instead of investigating misconduct or policy violations, the review focused on how institutional frameworks had failed to identify and utilize capabilities that proved essential during crisis operations. The questions weren't about punishment, but about systemic improvements that could prevent similar oversights in future personnel assignments. Admiral James Thunder McAllister, Pacific Fleet Intelligence Director, had arrived at Coronado specifically to conduct Sarah's debriefing and assess the broader implications of her involvement in counterterrorism operations. His initial skepticism about a civilian contractor providing actionable intelligence had been replaced by professional recognition of analytical capabilities that exceeded many active-duty intelligence specialists. The classified briefing materials that Sarah had prepared overnight demonstrated systematic thinking and tactical insight that would have been valuable in any operational context. Sarah's presentation to the review board revealed the depth of knowledge that she had concealed during her employment as civilian contractor. Her analysis of the terrorist operation included technical assessments that drew on years of intelligence training, tactical evaluations that reflected understanding of special operations procedures, and strategic insights that connected the attack to broader international security patterns. The quality of her work validated every claim about her background, while raising questions about how such expertise had remained unrecognized. Commander Mitchell testified about the tactical value that Sarah's intelligence had provided during the crisis, emphasizing that conventional security responses would have been insufficient to prevent infrastructure damage without her analytical contributions. His recommendation for formal recognition of her service reflected professional appreciation for capabilities that had proven decisive under pressure, but also highlighted institutional failures that had prevented earlier identification of her potential contributions. Lieutenant Commander Walker's security assessment confirmed that Sarah's actions during the emergency had been entirely appropriate and had enhanced rather than compromised operational security. Her conclusion that Sarah posed no security threat was based on comprehensive background verification that validated her claims about military service while documenting the personal circumstances that had led to her career transition and civilian employment. The most significant testimony came from Master Chief Morrison, whose 30 years of experience with special operations personnel provided credibility for his assessment of Sarah's tactical competence. His statement that she had demonstrated analytical capabilities equivalent to senior intelligence specialists carried weight that influenced administrative decisions about her future employment status and potential return to active duty service. The base personnel review revealed systemic problems with contractor screening procedures that had failed to identify relevant background experience among support staff. Sarah's case demonstrated that qualified personnel might be working in positions that underutilized their capabilities, creating missed opportunities for operational enhancement, while generating personal frustration that could affect retention and morale. The implications extended beyond individual personnel management to broader questions about talent identification and assignment optimization. Admiral McAllister's classified assessment concluded that Sarah's intelligence analysis had prevented an attack that could have disabled base operations for weeks, while potentially causing casualties that would have affected readiness throughout the Pacific Fleet. The strategic value of her contributions justified immediate consideration for return to active duty service in a position that would utilize her demonstrated expertise while providing appropriate recognition for her capabilities. The administrative challenge was unprecedented: how to transition someone from civilian contractor to active duty intelligence officer when standard procedures weren't designed for such circumstances. Sarah's previous military service provided a legal framework for reactivation, but her demonstrated competence suggested assignment at a level that reflected her proven capabilities rather than her previous rank. The solution required coordination between multiple commands and approval from senior leadership who understood the unique circumstances involved. The personal transformation that Sarah experienced was as significant as the administrative changes that affected her official status. For the first time in 2 years, she could acknowledge her full identity without concealment or compromise. The psychological relief of ending the constant vigilance required to maintain false limitations was immediate and profound. She could engage with military personnel as a professional colleague rather than maintaining the artificial boundaries that had characterized her contractor employment. Rodriguez, her former supervisor, struggled to reconcile the person she had managed for 8 months with the intelligence specialist who had prevented terrorist success through sophisticated analytical work. The competence that she had attributed to exceptional dedication was revealed as professional expertise that exceeded anything available through contractor training programs. Her evaluation of Sarah's laundry operations performance took on new meaning when viewed as systematic organizational capabilities applied to support functions. The broader base personnel became aware of Sarah's true background through official announcements that explained her role in preventing the terrorist attack without revealing classified details about her specific contributions. The response was overwhelmingly positive, with recognition that someone they had known as dedicated support staff had possessed capabilities that proved essential during crisis operations. Her transformation from invisible contractor to recognized expert demonstrated that hidden potential existed among personnel whose official roles might not reflect their full capabilities. Chief Petty Officer Torres expressed gratitude for equipment care that she now understood had been provided by someone with complete technical knowledge of operational requirements rather than basic contractor training. The systematic excellence that Sarah had demonstrated in laundry operations was recontextualized as professional competence applied to support functions by someone who understood their tactical importance. The special operations units that had benefited from Sarah's equipment care during her contractor employment requested her assignment to positions where her intelligence expertise could be utilized operationally. Commander Mitchell submitted formal recommendations for her integration into tactical planning activities, where her analytical capabilities could enhance mission effectiveness while providing the professional engagement that her background warranted. The Department of Defense review of Sarah's case resulted in policy modifications that improved screening procedures for identifying relevant experience among contractor personnel. Her situation demonstrated that traditional background checks might miss capabilities that could be valuable for military operations, leading to missed opportunities for operational enhancement and personal professional fulfillment. The intelligence community recognition that Sarah received included commendations from multiple commands that had reviewed her analytical work during the terrorist incident. Her tactical assessments were incorporated into training materials that would be used to educate other intelligence specialists about effective counterterrorism analysis. The quality of her work under pressure became a standard for evaluating similar emergency response situations. The career counseling that Sarah received focused on opportunities that would utilize her proven capabilities while providing the professional satisfaction that she had been seeking through her transition to support work. Multiple assignment options were available, ranging from tactical intelligence positions with special operations units to strategic analysis roles with fleet commands that could benefit from her expertise. The most meaningful recognition came from the base personnel who had worked with her during her contractor employment. Their understanding that someone they had known and respected possessed exceptional capabilities that had been hidden by institutional limitations created appreciation for the complexity of her situation and admiration for her choice to serve in a support role, despite her qualifications for operational positions. Sarah's decision about her future career path reflected the personal growth that had occurred during her 2 years in civilian employment. The experience of serving military personnel directly through support functions had provided perspectives that enhanced rather than diminished her value as an intelligence specialist. Her understanding of operational logistics, personnel concerns, and base administration would inform her analytical work in ways that purely operational experience couldn't provide. The formal ceremony that recognized Sarah's contributions included presentation of commendations that acknowledged both her emergency response during the terrorist incident and her dedicated service as civilian contractor. The dual recognition reflected understanding that her support work had been valuable service even though it underutilized her professional capabilities, and that her crisis response had demonstrated excellence that deserved formal acknowledgement. The transformation of institutional attitudes represented the most significant long-term impact of Sarah's case. Base leadership implemented procedures for identifying hidden capabilities among all personnel, recognizing that talent optimization required systematic assessment rather than assumptions based on job titles or official backgrounds. The cultural shift toward capability recognition rather than role limitation created opportunities for multiple personnel whose potential had been constrained by institutional frameworks. As Sarah prepared to return to active duty intelligence service, she reflected on the journey that had taken her from operational frustration through civilian concealment to eventual recognition and appropriate utilization of her capabilities. The experience had provided personal insight into service perspectives that would inform her professional work, while demonstrating that institutional limitations could be overcome through persistence, competence, and willingness to act when circumstances demanded exceptional contributions. The strategic implications of Sarah's case extended beyond Naval Base Coronado to influence personnel management policies throughout the Department of Defense. Her situation became a case study at the Naval War College, where senior officers analyzed the factors that had led to systematic underutilization of qualified personnel and the crisis conditions that had forced institutional recognition of hidden capabilities. The academic examination revealed patterns of talent misallocation that affected military readiness across multiple commands and service branches. The Joint Chiefs of Staff review that followed Sarah's case identified similar situations throughout the military where personnel with exceptional qualifications were serving in positions that failed to utilize their full capabilities. The comprehensive assessment revealed that institutional assumptions about contractor personnel, enlisted specialists, and junior officers often prevented recognition of expertise that could enhance operational effectiveness. The financial implications alone were staggering, representing millions of dollars in underutilized human resources that could have been optimized through better assessment procedures. Sarah's new assignment as Senior Intelligence Analyst for Pacific Fleet Special Operations reflected institutional commitment to utilizing her proven capabilities while providing opportunities for professional growth that her background warranted. Her unique combination of tactical intelligence expertise and operational support experience made her ideally qualified for coordinating between special operations units and support commands that enabled their missions. The position represented career advancement that acknowledged both her technical competence and her understanding of operational logistics from multiple perspectives. The training program that Sarah developed for identifying hidden capabilities among base personnel became a model that was adopted throughout the naval intelligence community. Her systematic approach to capability assessment drew on lessons learned from her own experience while incorporating psychological insights about why qualified individuals might conceal their backgrounds or understate their abilities. The program's success in identifying previously unknown expertise among existing personnel validated the investment in comprehensive talent optimization initiatives. The international intelligence community took notice of Sarah's analytical work during the terrorist incident, with allied nations requesting briefings about her methodologies and threat assessment procedures. Her tactical analysis had demonstrated innovative approaches to electronic intelligence gathering and real-time threat evaluation that enhanced counterterrorism capabilities beyond traditional surveillance and response protocols. The recognition established her as a subject matter expert, whose expertise was valued throughout the global security community. The base memorial service that honored the 3 security personnel who had been wounded during the terrorist engagement included special recognition of Sarah's role in preventing additional casualties through her intelligence contributions. The families of the wounded expressed gratitude for her actions, understanding that her analytical work had enabled tactical responses that minimized harm to military personnel while neutralizing hostile threats. The personal connection between her technical expertise and human outcomes provided emotional validation for her career choices. The documentary film project that chronicled Sarah's transformation from civilian contractor to essential intelligence asset was produced by the Defense Information School as educational material for military leadership training programs. The film emphasized lessons about talent recognition, institutional flexibility, and the importance of creating environments where exceptional capabilities could be identified and utilized regardless of official job classifications. The production became required viewing for senior officers attending professional development courses. Sarah's relationship with her former colleagues in the laundry facility evolved into mentoring connections that helped other support personnel identify opportunities for career advancement within military service. Her experience demonstrated that dedication to excellence in any position could lead to recognition and advancement when combined with willingness to reveal hidden capabilities and pursue professional development. Several contractor personnel requested career counseling that led to successful transitions to active duty service in positions that better utilized their qualifications. The base commander's quarterly awards ceremony featured Sarah as the keynote speaker, where she addressed the importance of recognizing potential in unexpected places and creating institutional cultures that encouraged personnel to contribute their full capabilities to mission success. Her speech emphasized that military effectiveness depended on optimizing all available resources, including human talent that might be concealed by modest personalities or unconventional career paths. The classified research project that Sarah initiated examined patterns of personnel underutilization throughout the Pacific Fleet, identifying systemic factors that prevented optimal talent allocation while recommending policy modifications that could enhance operational effectiveness through better human resource management. Her findings influenced personnel policies at the highest levels of military leadership, creating lasting changes that would benefit future generations of service members. The private foundation that Sarah established provided scholarships for military personnel seeking advanced education in intelligence analysis and counterterrorism studies. The foundation reflected her commitment to developing expertise that could enhance national security while honoring the sacrifice of service members who had been affected by intelligence failures throughout military history. The scholarships enabled dozens of qualified individuals to pursue specialized training that enhanced their contributions to operational success. The message that emerged from Sarah's story resonated throughout the military community, that hidden potential exists among personnel whose official roles might not reflect their full capabilities, that institutional barriers can prevent optimization of available talent, and that crisis situations sometimes require abandoning conventional limitations to achieve mission success. Her transformation from invisible laundry contractor to essential intelligence asset demonstrated that assumptions about capability should be tested rather than accepted, and that the most valuable contributions sometimes come from unexpected sources who possess the courage to reveal their true potential when service to others demands their best efforts. The legacy of her courage to act beyond institutional boundaries continues to inspire military personnel who recognize that their greatest service might require transcending the limitations that others place on their potential, while remembering that true leadership sometimes means stepping forward when no one expects you to possess the capabilities that the mission demands. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.